Every landscape has unique challenges associated with it. And it turns out that often those challenges are also opportunities. And here at the Montes residence, the biggest challenge and opportunity was the slope of the front yard. It starts out fairly well tapered over near the driveway, but then it gets even more pronounced going around the side of the property. And what that does is it gives a very unique viewing opportunity from the street looking onto the property, where you can actually layer plants one on top of the other, with larger plants in the backdrop and smaller, more intimate plants up near the front and near walkways and driveways. One of the most important things in any landscape is to make a decision early on whether that landscape should be a true desert landscape or if it should have more of a moderate water use theme. And here at this residence, there was a definite desire to take the entire front landscape and make it truly drought tolerant, very much desert plant material. The advantages to that is, one, there's less water use and less money to pay for it. Two, the plants naturally have more of a tendency to thrive here in our desert environment. And three, and I think this is the funnest part of all, with these desert plants, you get some really unique colors of foliage, wonderful textures, and amazing forms that come together to really make a landscape pop. And if all that wasn't enough, the desert plant palette has this unique ability to bloom throughout many seasons, and in fact, by bringing different plant material together, you can intentionally bring a landscape to life with flowers throughout the year, including the middle of summer and even the middle of winter. This landscape has some really unique, wonderful features. One of my very favorite of those bold desert plants is a plant called blue yucca, Yucca rigida. It's a big plant, although when you buy it, oftentimes they're very small. They take a long time to reach this size. And what's so remarkable about blue yucca is its truly bold form, the beautiful bluish cast to the foliage, and then this remarkable, very narrow band of gold on the margin of each leaf that when the sun strikes it, especially against a shaded backdrop, lights up like narrow bands of golden neon light that just somehow makes the whole plant radiate with this surreal color. But there's lots of really beautiful blue plants in our desert plant palette. Another really cool one is the euphorbia. This euphorbia here, known as gopher spurge. This one probably wasn't even planted here. It's so close to the walkway. So I'm pretty sure it popped up from seed. So one of the neat things about these little euphorbs is that they will reseed themselves. The seeds pop and fly, and then you get this beautiful blue succulent that blooms in February. So when most of the rest of the plants are looking down, this gets chartreuse flowers that again radiate in the sun and will catch your eyes from 50 or 100 feet away. And then right next to it, right here, we have this beautiful agave. This is agave perii wachakensis. And it's sometimes called artichoke agave because of its form. Beautiful blue foliage, black thorns, so you want to keep it away from a walkway. And it has the ability to create what we call pups. They're actually vegetative offsets. And what they are just basically genetically identical to the parent plant. And the neat thing is, these pups, you can see there's quite a few that have popped up here, are really easy to transplant. And the thing you want to do, because of those thorns, is protect your hands and then just quickly and easily pop them up out of the ground. So, watch this. Pull a little rock back, get the blade underneath it, lift, and there she goes. She's nice and loose with these thick leather gloves. And there she is, roots and all. This can go anywhere you want in the landscape as long as it gets at least a little bit of sunlight. Now, all these beautiful, bold, fleshy blue plants need plants to soften them. And right next to it is one of my all-time favorite desert plants. This is golden Disodia, Disodia pentachita, also known as shrubby dogweed. Has a wonderful fragrance to the foliage, and these little golden flowers that coat the plant throughout the year. It's just a gorgeous little desert perennial. And this plant, because it's a native plant, will pop up where there is no irrigation and will bloom in December, in January, in the middle of winter. And I think the other really cool plant right here to add to that textural variation is this grass. This is Muhlenbergia lindheimeri autumn glow. It's one of the larger muleys, a group of ornamental grasses. You can see it's with the flower stalks 6 foot tall and about 4 or 5 feet wide. Beautiful soft element. And the neat thing about grasses in general is they bring another really neat sensual element into the garden, and that's movement, the movement of wind moving through the landscape. You know, I like plants in general, but the desert plants are the ones that really capture my heart because of their bold forms, their incredible colors of foliage, their ability to bloom throughout the year with almost no care and very little water, and just a wonderful cast of characters to play with in your desert landscape. Like I mentioned earlier, the real challenge and opportunity with this property lay in the slope. Now, an important consideration whenever you're dealing with a slope on a property like this is drainage. Where's the water going to move? If you're working at changing the pattern or the hills at all on your property, make sure that you do not give the water an opportunity to flow back towards the house, that it always will flow out and around and out towards the street where it can drain away. The other challenge comes in retaining the soil. When the slope gets rather steep, the soil can have a tendency to slough off and create maintenance problems. What really helps is the inclusion of some boulders into the landscape that help retain soil. Larger rock materials also hold it well compared to some of the finer materials. But if you get into a really extreme slope, you may want to do a retaining wall. That retaining wall also gives you then the opportunity to showcase plant material. Here we have 3 different tiers with 3 main plants, starting with the blue yucca up on top, and then a very dependable desert plant known as desert spoon in this middle range. And then here at the lower level is one of my all-time favorite desert plants. This is coral fountain. It blooms for about 8 months of the year, from April through October, maybe even on into November, depending on how the weather comes in. It's very bright green in its color, and new growth springs upright, and then with time tends to arch over and down. Hummingbirds love this plant, and while there's a few blooms on it now, it's nothing compared to the flower show in the spring, when the entire plant gets laden with those flowers. The other neat thing about it is it actually attracts butterflies as well as hummingbirds. The downside to this plant, and I found that pretty much every plant has a downside, is that this one's a little bit cold sensitive. Look at this. Here's that little blue agave again. There's a wonderful contrast in color between these two. You could actually plant this near the base of the coral fountain. The thing about agave is it too has a downside, and this particular one is susceptible, as are many others, to an insect pest called the agave weevil. The agave weevil will actually burrow into the plant, lay its larva, and cause rot in the base of the plant, causing the death of the plant. Now the challenge here is that these are such drought-tolerant plants that even when the base has rotted away, the plant doesn't really show signs of stress. And when you do see the stress, it's usually too late. So the key with these is to treat them proactively with a systemic insecticide like Bayer tree and shrub insecticide. This beautiful blue agave will have a very long lifespan, 20, maybe 30 years before it flowers, and then unfortunately after blooming it'll die then. So this is just another wonderful desert landscape that shows you all of the opportunities that desert plants provide to enhance your home, to enhance its beauty, and to reduce your water use.